All right. Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us today. We will kick off in a couple minutes. All right. Jillian, are you ready to chat all things generative AI?
I am. I'm very excited for this conversation, Alex. Thanks for having me.
Awesome. At any point, folks joining us, if you want to ask a question, just pop it into the chat. We got some questions prior to today's live event. And so feel free to pop anything into the chat, stop us at any point, and we can go over specific things to writer or metadata or generative AI in general. We're happy to answer questions. And then if you're looking to kind of grab this after the call and share it with colleagues or other folks interested in the topic, we'll have this recorded and it will go onto our YouTube channel. All right. We will answer all the questions in the Q&A, so don't worry about the chat. We will just go use that function. So let's kick it off. We have a lot of great questions and some demos, some overviews. So let's dive in. All right, so today I'm chatting with Jillian from Writer. Jillian, could you just describe what you do at Writer and a little bit about yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be chatting with all of you today. Excited for this conversation. I lead sales partnerships here at Writer. And so that's inclusive of our tech integrations like that with metadata. So we'll share some insight and a glimpse into that today as well. And also focus closely on a lot of our partnerships with some of the big GSIs and big professional services firms. So very excited to be here, and we'll show you the platform in action, both the Writer platform directly, and then we'll also show you metadata generate and chat through some topics that I think would be super interesting and create a good dialogue here.
Awesome. Yeah, this is the first event of our kind of partnership. May joined us actually last year at Demand 2022 to talk about all things generative AI. So it's really coming full circle. Super excited to be here with you. I'm Alex from Metadata. I'm our director of product marketing. And I am just so pumped to talk about this topic. We've seen it all over LinkedIn. We're seeing companies pop up every day. And so it's really great to just sit down with you and kind of get the unfiltered approach to generative AI. So before we jump into the platforms or techniques, approaches, there's an element of so what in the market with generative AI, like how marketers can use it. And from the metadata perspective, it fits so well into our approach to B2B marketing. We want people to do experiments at scale, test copy, test imagery, test all of that kind of great stuff. And we're kind of hearing that marketers need to do more of that. We're hearing a lot of do more with less, but do less better. And we just actually released our 2023 benchmark report where we saw, even though we're marketing a down economy, marketers are actually spending more or spent more in this past year than they did in 2022. And they're separating it between kind of lead gen and brand awareness, but they need to do more with less. And so a generative AI kind of really fits into this conversation. And I'm curious, Jillian, what you're seeing on your end when it comes to B2B marketers and maybe the pressures that they're under and how generative AI has been utilized. Oh, I think you might be on mute.
Apologies. There are a few, thanks for the question. So there are a few key value areas that marketers are really focused on in, leveraging generative AI to, as Alex put it, do more with less. It's definitely the productivity gains, and we'll walk through some examples with some other B2B marketing customers of Writer as to really what they were focused on in terms of the ROI, and the expected productivity gains and what they're actually achieving, which is pretty extraordinary. And it's things like driving engagement and performance as well. So it's not just the productivity gains, but we're really seeing a focus on performance, engagement, personalization, in addition to these added efficiencies. So a lot of repurposing of content that we're seeing. So you're spending so much time, doing webinars and creating events and running podcasts and creating blog posts. And while that can definitely be enhanced and supported with generative AI, taking that and creating derivative content from all of those different marketing activities, we're seeing, a massive trend in terms of that use case, that sort of umbrella use case for the generative AI. So again, we'll show you into that as well. But it's been a huge time saver, and it's driven massive productivity gains across B2B marketing teams.
Absolutely. Yeah. When I talk to a lot of B2B marketers in product marketing, and they're using, AI and generative AI for content generation and the permutations of that content, personalization, chatbots on the site, email marketing, tapping into like visual content, and then predictive analytics and lead gen. So it's just kind of going all over the place for people to really harness and make their work more effective, more targeted. And, really when dollars are at stake and, you want to grow your team or you want to grow your performance, it's a really great way to optimize kind of the manual tasks and really focus on that more strategic level of marketing.
Yeah,
So
that's huge. It's
yeah.
not just, the reduction in time spent, writing, and being supported with that AI, but excuse me, it's the reallocation of those resources towards, more highly strategic initiatives. And so there's enormous, benefits, exponential, improvements in terms of what you're able to achieve.
Yeah. All right. I'm going to transition to kind of the landscape and have you school me for a minute on just what the landscape of this technology looks like.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's a lot of news and buzz around the applications in the market, like Copilot and Jasper and ChatGPT. So what Writer is, and we'll show you into this, is we fall into this top left bucket, this purple bucket of full stack platforms. So that means that we're everything from the proprietary foundation model all the way through to the application layer and all of the NLP in between. And so you have the closed foundation models and open source foundation models, like Stable Diffusion, and closed foundation models like GPT-4. And then we mentioned some of the applications. So we're both the base layer. So we have a family of proprietary open source large language models that are trained specifically on business writing. So what we're seeing across the landscape as well is there's a lot of these large language models that are popping up, but they're for various use cases. There's trained on sort of like the whole kitchen sink of information and content. So what Writer is we're specifically that base layer that's trained on business writing, because we're only generative AI for enterprise usage, not for consumer usage, all the way through to that application, so that folks across an enterprise on day one can actually use the application. Right. So this is sort of what we're seeing as to the LLM landscape and how different solutions and technologies are sort of coming to be, and where they fit in.
Awesome. Yeah, that's really, I had no idea it was all of these different kind of areas and subsets. I'm kind of ChatGPT, Writer, Jasper, like I've heard of this, but it's really eye-opening to kind of see all the different areas that generative AI is moving into.
Absolutely.
Cool. So I'm curious, the real world impact of Writer and, using generative AI at enterprise companies. We focus typically on B2B marketing, but I see, your clients are kind of all over the range of B2B to B2C.
Yeah. So a lot of marketing teams across the board are using us, and um, it's because generative AI has applications across nearly every professional within an enterprise that has to write, whether that's marketing teams, sales teams, product teams writing design copy, support teams, customer service teams. So lots of applications, and therefore I think it makes sense that this is applicable to both B2C and B2B marketers. But that being said, United Healthcare Group is a big client of ours, big customer of ours, and one of our big champions is their CMO, Terry Clark. And the results that they're seeing are things like 70% average increases in productivity across their writers, or their users using Writer, their employees using Writer. And with Victoria's Secret, they actually have an interesting use case that I think might be interesting, where they're actually seeing definitely an improvement in terms of productivity. They're seeing, I think, like a 99.5% improvement in productivity and reduction in time spent writing. But they're also starting to see performance gains, right? So they're experiencing a 40% increase in top of funnel traffic. So what they're doing, they're using it across various use cases across the marketing team, but one important one is for product descriptions. So what they're doing is that, with just a few inputs, and again, I'll show you this when we get into the platform, with just a few inputs like product name and the design features that are coming directly from the manufacturer, they're able to generate in their brand voice 3 different variations of product descriptions per product SKU. And so they started doing this, and we'll talk about the customization that we're doing on a client by client basis to basically train our model, or their own sort of custom model, because nothing they do is making its way into the foundation large language model. It's not training the model that will then be used by their competitors, as an example. But because we trained our model, or their custom model, on their best performing product descriptions, right? The ones with the highest click-through rates. The system knows, based on all of this data, what good looks like. And therefore, what's generated through Writer's generative AI is not something that's just generic. It's in their brand voice, which I believe is coined spirited wing woman. It's a very sort of Gen Z style of writing. And the structure is on point, and the character length, and all the things that they are really focused on writing to, and the different standards and requirements when they write these manually, or historically have written these manually. That's all learned by the model, because we're creating these custom templates for our clients and training their custom model on what good looks like. And so as a result, because the model knows what good looks like, and they're creating these product SKUs in masses, right? The performance of the product SKUs that are created with the generative AI are actually performing better. And so what they actually ended up doing was doing this whole content transformation initiative, whereby they sent all 6,000 SKUs. They sent the SEO keywords that needed to be associated with the product descriptions that were being created. In the matter of 3.5 hours, they revamped every single product description across their page, across their various pages. And as a result, they were able to achieve this 40% increase in top of funnel traffic. So that's just an example, similar to Terry Clark at United Healthcare. UiPath also experiencing pretty tremendous reductions in time spent creating marketing content. There's definitely going to have to be that marketer in the loop. It's about this AI and human relationship, and making sure that you're adding the strategic elements, you're always checking, you're making sure that things are factual, you're sort of massaging the things that a human needs to sort of lay of the AI to get this thing really production ready.
Exactly. And there's so much, similarity in the way we talk about experimentation at scale. Is you need a marketer to kind of be the hands-on to, look at our optimizer, look at the experiments, kind of take that strategic role. when it comes to experimentation at scale to ensure that, it's the right message at the right time kind of thing, but let AI like handle the rest, like go back to the things that you love as a marketer and don't worry about the details. It's also just really amazing to hear that Victoria's Secret story. I'm kind of stunned by the way they were able to rapidly pivot their messaging and get back out into market with something that was optimized and in their brand voice and everything. That's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah.
Cool. I'm going to take it to an actual case study, and I'd love for you to walk us through kind of, in detail how Avanti saw some great change in their content and thought leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. So the problem that Avanti was addressing was they were experiencing a pretty big strategic shift, right? Where they needed to focus more so on cross-selling into its existing customer base and less on acquiring new customers. And as such, the content needed to shift. So what they decided to do was bring on Writer as a way to enable more people, more of their employees, their writers, to write on brand, updated, and refreshed content at scale, right? And also take the content that was already created and create derivative content off of that really, really quickly to really maximize the capitalize on all of that hard work that's being done across those webinars and podcasts and so on. So again, they had to refresh and create a lot of new content, and they leveraged Writer to be able to repurpose, revamp, create new content rather quickly. And then some of the results that they saw, 150 hours per month saved creating content from podcasts that otherwise would be spent manually creating content like newsletters and advertisements and blog posts as that sort of derivative content off of their podcasts. They experienced a 66% reduction in writing time, and at this point in time, this is scaled across 3,100 of their employees. So pretty wide scale across many different applications and use cases, and very timely based on their strategic shift.
Wow, that's awesome. We are going through the process of optimizing content here at Metadata and working using Writer actually to kind of help us. So this story totally resonates with me.
Yeah, and we'll actually, when we get into the platform, we'll show Metadata as the actual customer using Writer, so it'll be very relevant, and maybe it'll spark some new ideas too.
Yeah, I'm curious, just here, like how are leaders using Writer, getting buy-in across the teams and kind of fostering that collaborative unit to go to market with new content that is produced by generative AI?
Yeah, it definitely requires, a change process and some upskilling. And I think that it's funny. I was speaking with a customer today, and all of even the personal benefits, but also like the benefits to your jobs. Like you get to spend time on the highly strategic work, the stuff that requires humans, right? Um,
Mhm.
and really sort of focusing in on the advantages to workload, to the actual performance of the content that's being created, to reallocating, time towards, initiatives that are probably more, preferable to writers and employees. That's one tactic that we've seen being used across leaders, but there definitely has to be an AI strategy, within a company and definitely within a division in place and articulated to the group in order for this change to happen because it is a change.
Yeah, that's kind of a great transition to the next slide with the use case heat map. I'm curious, with this use case heat map and with the AI strategy that you mentioned, how are different teams using it? And then kind of how can someone take this slide perhaps and use it as a template?
Yeah. So the way that we think about it is there's probably more, but five key intelligences that we've been talking about with our customers for generative AI. There's The use case, sort of like umbrella use case of creating net new content, right? There's repurposing that content. So it's the Avanti use case where they have all of these podcasts and they want to really capitalize on the work that they've already put in and repurpose those podcasts and redistribute those, different repurposed versions, whether it be meta descriptions or summaries or ads or, an email newsletter. So repurposing is definitely an important intelligence. Doing research, analyzing content, and then doing these transformations. So I would consider the Victoria's Secret Ron John case study to fall under the transformation use case. So we take these 5 intelligences, and what we would recommend is work backwards from your workflows. Understand, across all of our subdivisions within marketing, what content is being produced, what's the workflow, what needs to be automated, where it's going to have the greatest level of impact, and start there. So in this example, and I believe this is actually an example that we were running with, or an exercise we were running with a B2B, a big B2B tech company. We split out their, different divisions within marketing, strategy and campaign, brand editorial, demand generation, product marketing, events, and so on. And we mapped out with them what are their highest impact, and took a look and kind of viewed this as like a matrix across these 5 intelligence. What are the highest impact initiatives that we can get started with? And a lot of folks ask, but what if we don't know, if we're getting all of the use cases? You won't. And new use cases are going to be generated and to come up as you start to use this as well. So, do your best to map out, across the various applications where it's going to really drive massive improvements, whether that's on, CSAT improvements or performance gains or, time saved and reallocated towards other initiatives, and start there. And so some of the use cases here, recap webinars, create ad copy variants. So that's directly, the reason why metadata and writer formed an integration was to unlock this experimentation engine, right? Help you create variant copy really, really quickly and based on what other good variant copy looks like. Create blogs from scratch. Write customer stories with just a few inputs. So those are a few examples and sort of the exercise that we recommend going through when you're getting started.
I love this. This is such a great template or framework to just get teams thinking about how generative AI maps to all different business units. I'm curious, out of when people get started, should they start small? Should they do a couple of tests? And we'll get into kind of how you can use it in metadata, of course, but how are teams kind of just getting started? And I know there's maybe some fear of, oh, this won't sound like my brand, or how does this really work? How are teams getting started with generative AI and Writer?
Yeah, that's a good question, and I would recommend. So what you'll see in the actual platform is we have these out of the box templates, right? Get started in there. You can use those templates today as part of our, Team Access sign up online. You can sign up for a 14-day free trial should you, want to. Like if you're really trying to get your, start to dip your toe in the water, get started there and start using some of those templates. And the pre-configured templates, which you'll see in the platform, which is like create a case study with just a few inputs, or create a product description with just a few inputs, or a marketing email for, it's basically creating this structure for you or making suggestions around some common use cases that you can start to test out. So that's what I would definitely recommend. And then when you want to get a little bit deeper, I would recommend running through this exercise and, identifying the highest impact use cases, picking 3 to 4 of them and getting started.
Awesome. Yeah. Start small and experiment. Cool. So we will move into the demo portion. It's kind of hard to conceptualize, what does this look like without a concrete visual? So I am going to take it to the metadata platform, and then I will stop sharing, and Jillian will share what it looks like in Writer. So we're super pumped to have Writer in the metadata platform. We truly believe in experimentation at scale. We encourage folks to run a lot of experiments to understand what's working, what's not, and then our system optimizes to revenue, to key KPIs that B2B marketers care about. So when we were able to get this into the platform, it was just another way to help marketers spend less time doing those manual tasks and get back to doing more strategic initiatives. So without further ado, I will go into the platform. Can you see the platform okay? Perfect.
Yeah.
All right, so this is just the metadata dashboard, but this is not where the writer action happens. It happens when you're creating campaigns or in our library. So I'm going to go to the library, like I want to create an ad. And what's cool about Writer in our platform is we have trained it on the best ad copy that we have running through the platform. We're constantly sending signals back to the Writer team to improve our AI, to get it smarter, more capable with how it's going to structure the outputs that you can use in ads. So if I wanted to create an ad, I will go, like I'm going to create a LinkedIn ad, create an image ad, and then you'll see right at the top, metadata generates, powered by Writer. And then I can go to generate, and I can either put in a prompt or paste a URL. And from there, it will give me content suggestions and flesh out this copy. So I'm going to use our metadata versus ad channels page, and I will pop it in to the content suggestion prompt area. And of course, you can add more detail. You can add, a description, and then a CTA just to kind of fill out the entire area for this ad, and it is loading. And then you get, a configured ad that you can start with immediately to kind of check, okay, does this sound great? Do I need to make any edits? And then from there, keep continuing to create the ad. We also have content suggestions under text in our text library. So add new text, suggested content. And then from there, you would take the same steps, describe the product or paste a URL, and you will get some generated content.
This is great.
Yeah, no, we're so thrilled to have it in the platform, and some of the updates that we're going to be doing over the next couple quarters is content case limitation. So how much content. We know certain platforms are optimized for a certain amount of text or length of ad copy. So optimizing that, bringing more of the brand voice, helping our customers put in their brand voice into these ad suggestions, and then support for Google Ads. So it's really, we're thrilled to have it in the platform. It's going to make marketers' lives easier, because if you're a customer running metadata, we want you to put in a ton of ads and test a lot of things. So this is just one less area that folks need to spend a lot of time on. So I will stop sharing real quick. Actually, let me go back to our slide deck. And I'm going to pass it over to you. But if you want to just kind of go through at a high level the Writer platform.
Yeah, I'll do this at a high level. So I mentioned earlier that we're a full stack platform. So we're the foundation model, the foundation layer. So we're a family of open source proprietary foundation large language models all the way through to the application layer. So this is like the underlying architecture, and just very high level. What this means is that at the base layer, we have our proprietary large language models. This is really important because we're not storing or owning or training our model on anything that makes its way into Writer or metadata, right? And any of the outputs that are being generated. So that's the first important point. And I think I mentioned earlier that our foundation large language models are trained specifically on business writing. So the output out of the gate should be high quality business writing. And then we took one step further with metadata, and we took what they know is high performing ad copy and headlines and descriptions and so on. And we trained our model to understand what good looked like based on all of this amazing data that metadata has. And then beyond that, what you're going to see in the platform is that we fine tune on use cases. So we have these out of the box templates to help you get started really, really quickly that are built and trained specifically, fine-tuned on what what good looks like for that use case, right? What the expected outcome is when you put in a few inputs to generate that case study from just a few starting points. And then beyond that, we're actually customizing on the customer, at a customer by customer level. So in the instance of Victoria's Secret, we're taking their highest performing product descriptions, the ones with the highest click-throughs, right? And we're training their custom model. So this does not make its way to any of their competitors, just to reiterate, to understand what good looks like, what their brand voice looks like, what the style, the structure, and so on looks like. And this is a lot of the, efforts that that were underway, in the past month or two with metadata to get this set up in the best possible way for its customers, and that the model now understands what good looks like, and you can take advantage of that more customized model and output, so it's not just generic copy that's being outputted. And then beyond that, what we're doing, and this is actually where we started as a company, is we're layering on brand guidelines, compliance rules, a company's style guide, right? We're layering that on top of the generative AI to make sure that we are meeting all of those requirements. So we're really, really sweating the details, right? The same way that writers need to sweat the details to get writing and content production ready. And then this is what made the metadata writer integration possible. We're available everywhere. So you'll see our platform today. We're available in metadata via our API. So we created a custom integration there. We have an app for Google, Microsoft, Google Chrome, Microsoft, Figma, Outlook, Contentful, so available nearly everywhere that writers are writing. So again, base model all the way up to the application layer, all of the details in between, or the NLP in between, that's required to really get this thing production ready and to really make significant progress in terms of efficiency gains.
Awesome. I'm going to stop sharing and pass it over to you for this demo.
Amazing. Okay, let's jump in. Let me know that you can see my screen.
Yep.
Okay, excellent. So this is what our out-of-the-box templates look like. So we have an out-of-the-box template library in Writer, and you'll see that a lot of the prompt engineering, so you might have heard that folks need to be expert prompt engineers in order to get the best value, the most use out of generative AI. Basically, what we've done with the custom templates that we're essentially pointing to with the metadata writer integration, and what customers are doing is, we're setting up these templates, right, where some of that prompt engineering is already done under the hood for you. So I'll show you what I mean by this, and you can go section by section, but I am zooming in on marketing and our out-of-the-box templates here. So if I click into one of these, and I have this preloaded, so let me just expand my screen. Let's go into this one. So this is case study. Okay, so I wanted to write a case study with just a few inputs. And again, this is our out-of-the-box template. So you'll see that it takes the shape of inputs, which are on the left, and outputs, which is the outputted content, which is on the right. And so in this out-of-the-box template, it's asking for companies. So who are you writing this for? It's for metadata, right? Metadata is producing this customer story, this case study. The customer is Fivetran. The challenge is Fivetran was struggling to drive high enough engagement on LinkedIn, and they also wanted to increase trial and demo conversions. And then the solution was with metadata, they now target and nurture good fit accounts on LinkedIn with more targeted content based on engagement. I probably didn't do this justice, but again, this is just an example. And then some of the results. And then when I click generate content, and I can do this as many times as I want, and you'll see that it'll come up with an original case study each time. But you'll see right out of the box, again, this is not trained at this point in time on metadata's customer stories, their case studies that are online. But if they wanted to further drive efficiency gains and get this even closer to, I think it created it down here. Oh, here it is. Okay. Closer to production ready, we could create a custom template for this where we're training, again, our model or metadata's custom model to understand exactly what do metadata's case studies look like, and what do their starting points look like. So these can be tailored as well. And we can get it really, really close to production ready, including their brand voice in doing so. And so this is what comes out of the box. And again, I can click generate content and create a whole new version. So you'll see it's structured like this. There's an about section. There's a challenge.
This is great.
There's a solution. And you'll see that we're also tracking claims. For example, here's a quote. We need to check with Aaliyah from Fivetran to see how Aaliyah would modify this quote, or if they're okay with this quote. So, numbers are flagged, claims that are being made are being flagged. And that's an important aspect because LLMs make stuff up. And we have other parts of our solution, which I won't get into today, around how we mitigate that risk. But that's something that's front and center. And because we're built from the ground up and continue to be built just for enterprise usage, we're always thinking about the aspects and the risks that need to be mitigated when using generative AI. So that's an example of an out of the box template. And what I'll show you is on the topic of repurposing content. So I took this content directly from one of your blog posts, and I can click this button highlights, and you'll see immediately, let me rerun this, that I have a tweet. So don't let account engagement be the only focus of your it's a new one. Sorry. Don't just focus on account engagement for ABM campaigns. You need demand generation too. Learn the difference between ABM platforms and a marketing OS to get the most out of your campaigns, the hashtags. So you create this derivative content. So this is a similar use case, and I'll show you an even more similar example to the Avanti use case, where they're taking podcasts that have already been produced. So in this case, we're taking metadata's blog posts that have already been produced with or without generative AI. And they're able to create all of this derivative content and really get more value out of all of their efforts that were being made, that had been made on creating the blog post, this amazing blog post, showing the differences between ABM platforms and marketing OS.
This is great.
And then, yeah, hopefully I'm sparking some ideas for you, Alex, for use.
Yeah, we're a small marketing team right now. And we're, juggling strategic initiatives and then just producing content. And so this really resonates with me at the moment.
Awesome. I love it. Great. So the other thing that I wanted to show you before we jump into some more examples is you'll see that there's this sidebar that's appearing, right? And this is that layer 5 that we were chatting about in the underlying architecture of Writer, where we're bringing a company's, let's say, metadata's style guide, right? Their stylistic preferences in the form of inline suggestions to automate the correction of off-brand writing. So what they're doing on the back end, and you'll see that they take the form of these inline suggestions. So this is just a grammar suggestion versus, we don't use the word start. Use the word begin instead. Or suggestions around clarity. We don't use passive voice. We only use active voice. Change this to active voice. Or this goes beyond our sixth grade reading level that we need to fall within in order to meet our brand requirements. So you'll see all of this is layered on top of both the content that's being generated as well as content that you're just writing out in the wild, whether that be in metadata completely separate from Writer. So we have this Google Chrome plugin that's basically bringing these inline suggestions directly to your writing and your authoring environment. And the way that they set this up is in Writer's backend, it's toggle on, toggle off switches. We've taken 200 plus to one-page style guides and basically configured it in Writer by turning on and off these toggle on, toggle off switches. So everything from punctuation to writing style. When using acronyms, always introduce it with the acronym in parentheses on first mention. Here's an example. I have this checked on. To clarity. So I have this set at advanced, but I can set it to, a fifth grade Flesch Kincaid grade level, should I choose. Sometimes different industries require lower reading levels, and plain English is, plain language is maintained across the writing. To delivery, we see sales teams using this. It's flagging on confidence. Turn something that is showing, less confidence into something where, we can make it more confident and so on. So that's how it's being set up. And I just wanted to show you that aspect because I know that writing and these specific requirements and these details are so important to writers. It's where we started and where we're continuing to develop. And it's a really important aspect of the generative AI and being layered on top. Another example I'll show you, recap. So I took this, what's next? It's a conversation with Gil, Metadata CEO, and Jason Widup. And I took that and here's one of our out-of-the-box templates. So again, one that's not custom created that you could use on day one. And I said that this is an event, so a webinar. And I included the URL, and then I can generate a recap. And this recording type is going to dictate what's outputted. So if it's a sale, let's say it's a sales call, and that's the URL that I'm including. What's going to be outputted is, discovery notes and objective and next steps and the things that are going to be important for the seller who's using this to really gain, efficiencies in their process, right? Mm-hmm. In this case, for a marketing team, again, out of the box, what we're generating are key takeaways and some of the information that'll be relevant and really useful for their initiative. So while this generates, I'll show you, should be just a few more moments, but we'll flip back to it. Let me show you Ask Writer. So this is something that's probably similar to, if you've checked or tried ChatGPT, what you'd experience there. So I'm going to take, and you can add sources. So it could be in the form of PDFs and Microsoft Word docs and Excel docs. So we can take all of these different sources and we can use that, we can upload it, literally drag and drop and set that as the context for the questions that are being asked. So, if I were, as an example, to upload a PDF one-pager on metadata, and I was to say, what's the key value proposition here? It would pull out, what it would summarize what the key value proposition is based on that one sheeter that we've uploaded here. And it could be very long files as well. So lots of functionality there, but sort of in its simplest form, what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this June 2023 release that Alex wrote, and I'm going to ask for create a sales email highlighting the key takeaways from this announcement. Do Metadata.io. So here you'll see that it's less structured, right? It's similar to, and I'm just going to insert the URL. But what you're going to see is that it's less structured than those input fields and output fields where a lot of the prompt engineering is, again, done under the hood. So this
Mhm.
is what's generated here.
Wow. This is awesome. And again, it's reducing the time that it takes to put an email together. That could take 45 minutes, an hour to craft the right email, to recap the right event notes. So it's just amazing how much it's kind of helping um, pull content together, make it so, me as a product marketer, I can spend more time on higher level initiatives or other kind of strategic projects.
That's exactly right. And you'll see that I actually like interacted with it here.
Mhm.
So, I had it create, I prompted it to create this sales email. So Alex can, share it with, their sales team. And hey, it looks a little bit, longer than expected. And let's shorten this. Right. And this is assuming that metadata doesn't have a custom template that's set up to turn any of their pages into sales emails based again on their best performing sales emails, which is the level of customization that we're getting to with a lot of our customers. But I told the AI to shorten this email and make it more informal. And so it did it. Um, and then quickly getting back to the recap, this is what was outputted. So
Mhm.
about the session, so this was again from that YouTube conversation between Jason and Gil, the key speakers, the agenda, and this
Mhm.
was all taken from the video and the takeaways.
That's great. And you can see it still, with names and things. There's some rereading that you have to do to just kind of update it. It's not a total one-to-one, but it gives you so much more to work with and then to optimize or take to other parts of Writer, for example, to produce something new. And um yeah, this is amazing technology.
Awesome. So I think that's pretty much it from like the demo standpoint. Yeah.
Amazing. All right. If you stop sharing, I will start sharing. And somehow we've spent almost 50 minutes chatting through generative AI. So I am going to pop up some questions real quick. And as I said earlier, if you have questions in the chat, just use the Q&A area. Um, during the session, but I will jump right in. And a ton of these questions are really focused on generative AI. So I think most of this might be you, Jillian. And we'll start just right at the top. So generative AI sounds promising for content creation, but how can B2B marketers ensure that the content maintains the brand voice and aligns with their target audience preferences? I know we've talked about this a little bit, but maybe describe what should marketers be thinking about as they're creating these style guides or wanting to use them in something like Writer?
Yeah. I think that what's important to note is that like what needs to be established if there's not a level of customization that's layered on top of whatever system that you are using. Um, And even with that level of customization, there always has to be a human in the loop. So using something out of the box, probably not going to capture your brand voice, right? And that's okay. And that's where the human can come in and focus most of their efforts in really sort of enhancing the content and getting it to a place from first draft to making the modifications required to getting it into your brand voice. Our preference, if you really want to take sort of like that extra step in getting this production ready with the generative AI, and then focusing your efforts elsewhere, right? All of the other things that are required to getting it production ready that go beyond getting it in your brand voice is to add that layer of customization. Right. It's to be able to have the system understand what good looks like for your case studies and for your blog posts and for your sales emails and what your brand voice is and what your brand voice is for the product descriptions, as is the case with, Victoria's Secret. So that's what I would recommend. It's, establish exactly how the human, and this is going to come with experimentation too. Establish how the human is going to work together with the AI and what you can expect out of whatever solution that you're using to generate the content. And in an ideal scenario, definitely add that level of customization.
Yeah, definitely. I know for example, our brand document has our tone of voice. We have a whole section on no words. Like we have um again like sentence case versus title case, different things like that that just help shape the tone. So then when you get to using generative AI, you can take that, you can take analysis on experiments that you've run in the market or customer conversations and kind of all fuse that in together into something that is your brand voice that aligns with what your target audience's preferences are because you have data from campaigns or feedback that hits the mark.
That's exactly right.
All right. So for our small to medium B2B businesses with limited resources, what are some practical and cost-effective ways to start with generative AI?
Yeah, I think that my sort of biased approach would be to maybe biased approach, but I do think that we are. I know that we're the solution for businesses. That's again the only thing that we're focused on. So if you want to do this really well, I would and you have limited resources, I would definitely suggest starting with our light version. So it's our what's called team version. You can sign up online to do that and play around with the out of the box templates. And then what I would definitely recommend is to start to think about the ROI that you're expecting, because if resources are limited from an investment standpoint, but you're able to forecast all of the gains, the returns, whether it's CSAT increase and or more engagement and more signups, or it's increased productivity, and you can take your time and spend it elsewhere. I would definitely recommend sort of going through the key value areas that you think generative AI will be most impactful around for your business. And perhaps resources open up from an investment standpoint. And with that, you can really sort of start to identify where you want to apply generative AI, even if it's using the Teams version, which is just fine.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's great. That resonates a lot with how we explain metadata. You can use, you can run ads natively, you can start to build out spreadsheets that are combining all the information. But really, if your goal is to improve ROI, get a system that works and then keep tabs on your key KPIs and make sure it's aligned. And I'm sure with generative AI, you could write prompts and you can use free systems. But really, if you're wanting, a way to track and do multiple things and um, just kind of align with your North Stars, Writer is not a bad place at all to start.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
Cool. Okay. So, how can B2B marketing teams effectively integrate marketing campaign experimentation into their existing workflows without disrupting ongoing campaigns? So, maybe you could chat about the generative AI side, and I'm happy to take more of the, experimentation at scale side.
Yeah, that's great. Into their, you know what? Let's have you lead this response, because I think it's more up your wheelhouse, and then I can sort of chime in with any commentary on the generative stuff.
Sure. So, when it comes to adding experimentation without, disrupting ongoing campaigns or workflows, it's really important to think why you're experimenting and are those workflows or ongoing campaigns, uh, you know, worth keeping on. So what we like to tell people is, take stock of really understanding your pipeline, what's working, what's not, the campaigns that are working and what and not, and digging into the details and looking at, what ads are resonating, what kind of copy is resonating, creative, all of those kind of things that can inform how you'd like to experiment, what platforms you'd like to experiment on, types of creative content. And start with a set aside budget, or maybe a fix onto a campaign that might be, not working as well, that you can test on. But, monitor what's working, what's not, to ensure that you're optimizing your ongoing campaigns. We, at Metadata, always encourage constant optimization. It's what the platform does. So while you don't want to disrupt anything, like have a campaign turn off or overspend, you also don't want to just let it linger and not be optimized. So I think, starting with your analysis, looking at what's performing and what's not, and then making improvements, you're not disrupting what's working, but you're optimizing for what could be a more successful output.
Yeah, I think that's great. And on the generative side, start tapping generative to, enable you to, free up your time to do more of that analysis and some of the other activities that are so important to, um, running this campaign experimentation without disrupting your workflows. And definitely again, dive in. I'm sort of uh, beating a dead horse here with that, but I get your hands on the applications and start experimenting around experimentation.
Experiment on experiments. I also think, when it comes to integrating experimentation into the existing workflows, that chart that we saw earlier around the different functions within marketing and how maybe they could be using generative AI or more experimentation. I mean, that framework is so important to just kind of look up and see areas of opportunity. And maybe it's not, the ongoing campaigns, maybe it's another place that you can start experimenting and trying to drive, more ROI and better results from campaigns.
Great.
All right, so last question here. Personalization is a key aspect of B2B marketing. How can generative AI help marketers personalize their campaigns at scale without compromising?
Yeah, that's a without compromising on relevance. Yeah, so I think in the same way that generative AI is accelerating, experimentation and multiple, variants on headlines and so on, and all of the content that's being written. In the same way, with perhaps a bit more specificity around who the target audience is and what the expectations are, and again, even better, what good messaging typically looks like for that audience. This unlocks a whole new level of personalization that just hasn't been possible, manually, based on the different segments that teams are trying to target, and the number of touch points that the audiences need to be reached. So it's in, again, the same way that it's enabling you to create much more quickly all of these different variations of copy with an added level of specificity around who it's going to. And again, if the model knows even better what effective, engaging content looks like to that audience, you're going to unlock completely new potential with the level of personalization that you're able to achieve.
Yeah, 100%. I don't see it as any kind of compromising. B2B marketers are already doing personalization, running ABM campaigns, and they're writing all the copy manually. So, saving a little more time with a platform like Writer that can know your brand and help you with outputs and creativity and specific emails or content pieces is just another lever, another tool to make things faster, speed to market, and again, help you prioritize at a higher strategic level when it comes to personalization at scale in B2B marketing. So I think, there's not a lot of compromising. It's just, again, to your point, that the human element remains with generative AI, and it's how you harness the platform and the tools to really drive success.
Yep, that's exactly right.
Well, I cannot believe we're already at time. This was a great conversation. Thank you so much for joining me today. And this will be available on YouTube and we will share it out. So really appreciate your time.
Appreciate your time. Thanks so much, and thanks for tuning in. This is a great start to the conversation.
Absolutely. All right. Bye, everyone.
Bye.